Hi, and welcome to the Reiki from the Farm podcast, brought to you by me, Pam Allen-LeBlanc from Hidden Brook Farm. I am a scientist, a businesswoman, and a licensed Reiki master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. Each week in this podcast, you'll be entertained as you learn about a wide variety of relevant Reiki topics, helping you become a more knowledgeable and effective Reiki practitioner. We caution you, though, this podcast may also dramatically improve your life, and we are so happy that you're here. And so welcome everyone on this week's podcast and in this month's Reiki Share. I'm back with Karen Caig, and we're here to answer your questions about Reiki. And we thought we'd start with the top 5 questions that people ask Google about Reiki, and then go from there and answer the questions of the folks that are here today. Karen and I began a Reiki Basics podcast series for a couple of reasons. One is because even we can have the most complete training and sometimes just have missed one or two basics that maybe it was mentioned in class, maybe it wasn't, or maybe we just missed it. So it can sometimes be nice to just refresh the basics of Reiki. And the other reason is that sometimes we get asked questions ourselves about Reiki, and it might be nice to have the answers, or you can always refer people to this podcast as well. And Karen's here by popular demand because every time I do a podcast with her, I hear from fans that say, I just love her, I want to hug her, and can you do more podcasts with Karen? And I said, that's pretty good guidance. That's pretty direct guidance. Karen, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you for asking me.
So guys, before we begin, I just want to let you know about some of the things I have coming up at the farm. This week I have 5 days of animal Reiki. It's both online and in person. The classes aren't full, so join us if you'd like. In October 31st, I have a Holy Fire 3 Karuna Reiki class, and that's with the World Peace Energy. And that's being offered in an Australian-friendly time zone, which is evenings in North America, early mornings in Australia. And then in December, I've got 6 days of animal stuff. I've got a Reiki level 1 and 2 class, which is a prerequisite to animal Reiki, and it's also helpful to have that before animal communication. It's followed by 2 days of animal communication and 2 days of animal Reiki. In January, I have a full lineup of online classes in the Eastern time zone. And in March, I'm going to be on the ground in Royalla, Australia, just outside of Canberra. And would love to have you join us for Reiki level 1 and 2 masters and animal Reiki 1 and 2. Really excited to get back to Australia. And in May, if you are in the New York area, we'd love to have you join us for animal Reiki. And of course, there's more classes in April, and next summer I'll be doing the whale class for any of you that would like to join us for animal Reiki with the whales. So would love to see you there. Karen, and I guess in November I'll also be, for any Brazilian listeners, I'll also be part of the Brazilian Reiki Summit. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll be in Massachusetts in just a month's time talking about dowsing animal communication and animal Reiki. Join us for any of those. Karen, what have you got going on?
I teach 1 and 2 master, animal 1 and 2, animal master every month. Just check Reiki-institute.com.
Excellent. And you also teach sometimes in the Asian time zone?
Yeah, I do have one coming up. I have an animal Reiki master on Hong Kong evening time coming up at the end of this month. I'm teaching it over 4 days. So
yeah, and it's 2 week, like a Friday and Saturday.
It's Friday and Saturday, so it'll be Friday and Saturday night. If you're in Hong Kong, Taiwan, In
China.
Southeast Asia, it'll be from 7 until
Midnight.
11. Sorry,
11.
math is not my strong suit. 7 to 11. And if you happen to be in London, it would be like 12 to 4.
Excellent.
So if you're in that time zone, so it'll be over 4 days instead of 3.
And it'll be very early morning
It'll be very early morning for me
in North America. Yeah. Okay. Guys, welcome to our Q&A Reiki session, and we thought we'd like to start by answering some of the top questions about Reiki. And so one of the top questions that is often asked is, are there any side effects from a Reiki treatment? Karen, do you want to answer that?
Side effects. I assume that they mean negative side effects because that's probably what they're worried about. But I would say, yes, relaxation and joy. That's a side effect of a Reiki session. But no, really, I would say probably when I first started practicing Reiki with the Usui Tibetan, that energy was a little, to me, it seemed like it was a little more, maybe not as refined. And sometimes if it pulled up a lot of stuff that needed to clear, they might experience
discomfort.
Yeah, discomfort. Mm-hmm. But I've noticed that this holy fire energy doesn't seem to do that as much. No, sometimes people twitch during the session. I guess that's a side effect. And it's because the energy releases. One time I was doing a session on this mortgage banker, I'll never forget, because I was at his head and I saw his left foot. I felt like a shift and I saw his left foot go, boing, kick. But I didn't say anything. And then just a couple of minutes later, boing, and he opened his eyes and said, what is going on with my left foot? And I said, when you get a massage, sometimes you have a knot in your muscle and the massage therapist just applies steady pressure and it releases. He said, yeah. I said, that happens energetically sometimes. The energy is like, it just unknots an energetic knot and you may twitch. Or he said, oh, okay. But that to not be alarmed at that. Most people just relax and fall asleep.
That's true. It is.
Side effects? No, I think what they mean probably when they're typing that into Google is, I don't know, is my hair going to fall out? Or but in the West, we're conditioned to that. We advertise prescription drugs. And then at the end of the TV commercial, do you do this in Canada? Are they allowed?
It's not a Canadian.
Okay, so in America, yeah. Take this. It may help clear your acne up. And then at the end, it's like your left arm may fall off and you may have diarrhea for 6 months. They just have such a list of side effects. So I'm sure that's what they mean. And as far as negative side effects, no, I haven't. Have you?
No, and not negative side effects. No, sometimes a mild discomfort as energies are clearing. And occasionally you mentioned twitching. I've had that. And there's tears. Sometimes as some of the bigger energies release, there's tears. And as Reiki practitioners, we're trained not to offer the Kleenex right away because we don't want to stop that flow of that release. We want the release to happen fully and completely, and then we offer the Kleenex. And there's always Kleenex here, but our first instinct often when we're crying in front of somebody, we feel very vulnerable and we want to stop it. But as Reiki practitioners, it's such a safe space, and a lot of times the tears that release are really positive. And one of the things that I'll mention along with that is Reiki is not an alternative therapy. It's not meant to be used in the place of medical care, medicine, medications, or mental health care. It's meant to be used, it's a complementary therapy that's meant to be used alongside of those things. And when I when people use them together, they seem to have fantastic results. I've worked with clients who didn't necessarily lose their hair during chemotherapy. Speaking of losing the hair, that made me think of it, or didn't have a lot of the side effects of radiation. And I think a big part of the reason is Reiki is just, it allows us to become so relaxed that we're in such a space to be very receptive and open to healing. And we often say it's not the Reiki energy that heals us. The body knows how to heal itself. We're just not always in the most receptive state to allow it to do that. So Reiki removes any blocks or barriers. It allows us to relax so that we can move into a place where our body can heal itself. Does that make sense, Karen? Would you?
I concur. Yeah. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Another question people often ask, is Reiki a religion? And I'm going to add a spin to that, and I'll ask you to answer, Karen, and then just ask, and does it go with religions? And I think we know the answer to that, but let's go ahead and answer that for our listeners.
It is not a religion. Now, I live in the American South, and where people are really preoccupied. It's called the Bible Belt where I live. And people they're worried about that. They come from a background where they need to be on guard against like evil forces and all of that. And no, Reiki is not a religion. It goes with any spiritual path, and it also goes without any spiritual path. I wouldn't say most people who come to Reiki, they are coming from a spiritual of some kind of background. They're seekers, I guess you could say. But I have run into some people go like, no, I don't believe in all of that. They come to it from a scientific point of view. I've read that this seems to work with the human biofield, and this has positive results, say post-surgery, or it's right. I read about a study about Reiki being as effective, only quicker than cognitive behavioral therapy with some adolescents. And I'm like, yeah. So sometimes people come, I don't want to have anything to do with like spirituality or anything like that. Just lay the Reiki on me. And that's fine. And that's, to me, is the beauty of Reiki. It works with people in whatever way they want to receive it.
Agreed. And you can be an atheist.
Yeah.
And still receive Reiki.
Yeah. Or you can be a Christian and receive Reiki. Or you can be a Buddhist and receive. I mean, it doesn't matter. It goes with any spiritual path. It doesn't require you to change anything about your belief system to receive. It's the gift of healing, this energy, this spiritually guided life force energy.
Most people who follow specific religious or spiritual paths report that Reiki really enhances their experience. And I've had the opportunity with the World Peace Grids, one of the things that William did was place Reiki Grids on the North Pole, the South Pole, Jerusalem, the Reiki centers in Michigan and Maui, and also on Mount Kurama, where Reiki originated. And on those grids, there are the symbols for 12 of the world's major religions. It includes, and that also includes agnostics, atheists, and independent spiritual paths. And these grids, in addition to, like, the reason that he placed them there, he calls them World Peace Grids, is so that to give us all a focus, a place to send Reiki that will work with the magnetic pull of the earth to spread peace on the planet. And it's also got the Reiki symbols, it's got crystals, it's in the shape of the 12-petaled lotus flower, which is the ICRT's logo. And it says the following: may the followers of all the world's religions and spiritual paths work together to create peace among all people on earth. And I just love that sentiment. And some time ago, I was guided to start writing a book, and then I've been too busy to finish writing the book on the 12 different religions that are encompassed there, the major world religions, and just compare them. And so that, and it was meant to be called All Roads Lead Home. So in other words, it really doesn't matter what path you follow. We're all searching for source or the creator or God, whatever name you choose to call that. By, you might even call it by science's name, biofield energy, whatever name, the universe, whatever name works for you. One of the part of the ICRT's philosophy is that it doesn't matter what name you call the creator or source, just, and so I've had the honor of talking with quite a few folks now from who combine Reiki with their religious beliefs, from Catholicism and Protestantism in the Christian background to Buddhism to Islam, Judaism. You talked with me about the goddess religions, and I've even been in contact with somebody with Taoism and a Zen Buddhist monk, and I haven't, unfortunately, I haven't been able to convince them to come on the podcast yet. They're a bit shy, but I'd love to talk, and I'm looking for somebody with Zoroastrianism, and I have somebody in mind for native spirituality, but I'm gonna come back to that series, because one of the things we find is Reiki goes with every religion, or like you said, Karen, or with none, regardless of what you follow and what you practice.
It's the string of pearls. It's the string of pearls of religion. It goes with everything.
I like that.
It's the little black dress, right? It goes everywhere. Yeah.
And as a scientist, we have a lot of friends who are scientists, and I'm a scientist by training, and it goes along with science, and that kind of leads into our next question, which is there any science behind Reiki? What do you answer when people ask you that?
I say, yes, go to pubmed.gov, which is the American government site that publishes every study that has been done here. And also, because I remember reading one study that was done in Turkey.
Oh.
Yeah. There needs to be more and more well-designed studies.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is science. There are some double-blind, large sampling studies that show Reiki is effective, especially when it comes to chronic pain, relaxation. Yeah. And Anne Baldwin's book, I'm going to plug that. Oh gosh, it's over there. Reiki and Clinical Practice.
Reiki and Clinical Practice. Oh, geez.
Yeah, Reiki and Clinical Practice. That's a good book. So I'm a former English professor, so I'm not a scientist like Pam. I was like, unless you want me to diagram a sentence, maybe. But I like the way her book is laid out, because you can look up different types of studies, say, like for mental health, for example, and she has it grouped together with the charts and all that sciencey stuff.
And I've had the privilege of interviewing her a couple of times on my podcast, and Dr. Baldwin is a clinical scientist, and she also heads the Center for Reiki Research.org, which is a sister organization. It was created by William Rand to the International Center for Reiki Training. And I love the Center for Reiki Research. One of the things they do is that they peer review all of the Reiki studies that are done in medical journals. There have been quite a few Reiki studies that have been published in medical journals, either nursing or doctor practitioner journals, and dietetics as well, different studies along those lines. And they peer review them, and they look at them for the effectiveness based on the size of the study. Was it double blind? That sort of thing. They also help scientists set up a study. Any scientist who's interested in creating a Reiki study can contact Dr. Baldwin at the Center for Reiki Research, and she can help make sure that your study is set up in such a way as to be the most effective. And another one of my podcast guests, Dr. Martha Lacey, is actually in the process. She's just designed a study for some of her high-level cancer research. And Dr. Baldwin basically helped her set the parameters of the study so that it would be more accepted and so on. And I'm very interested to see how that study turns out. But Dr. Lacey is fantastic. I can't even pronounce what Dr. Lacey is. She teaches fellows at the Mayo Institute in Minnesota, and I always mispronounce it, so I'm not even going to try. But she does do high-level cancer research, and she's also published some articles in the Reiki News magazine. So I know that on the completion of that study, and once it is written up in the medical journals and so on, she'll share that. But taking that back a little bit, for me as a scientist, it was really important to know, is there science behind this? And so when I came across some other scientists who explained, like, really, a lot of Einstein's work Reiki is the expression of a lot of Einstein's work. The thing, no time or space, just E equals MC squared. Like, a lot of these higher level physics theories and so on are proven with the effectiveness of Reiki. And we may not have developed diagnostic tools that are sensitive enough to measure the Reiki energy itself yet, but we've developed enough studies that have measured the efficacy and the effectiveness of the Reiki, which is also another scientific method. You don't necessarily have to prove something's there if you can prove that it works. And there's been so much proof that it works that how many hospitals, Karen, has it been adopted in throughout the United States right now? Like 1,200 or something?
The last I read was 800, right. But I think it's closer to, in my spare time, maybe I'll go back and check. But I think it's really truly closer to 1,200 that have, including like the volunteer programs, and then those that actually have Reiki. It's like some of the cancer centers, for example, have Reiki masters on staff, and they train the caregivers and send the caregiver home with Reiki 1 so that the caregiver can give Reiki to the patients. So there's a variety of different programs.
There is.
You can Google list of hospitals with Reiki in the United States, and you'll get some major Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, a New York Presbyterian. A lot of the bigger hospitals have them.
Yeah, they do.
And in the UK, my friend Duncan said in the UK, several hospitals also use it.
I find we're a little slower here in Canada to adopt it, and I wonder if it has to do with the fact that medical care is free here. And I feel that it probably is to do with the fact that if you stay 7 days in the hospital or 10, like, it's no big deal. Whereas I'm not sure if it's true or not, but one of my students told me once that one of the reasons that Reiki is more prevalent in the US than in Canada is that the insurance companies got together and said, listen, it's going to take them too long to figure out if it works or not. Let's figure out if it saves us money. And so they did their own studies on, does it save them money? And in fact, it saved them so much money that there are some healthcare insurance providers who offer a discount if you will accept Reiki sessions in hospitals. And so then this really spurred on because it saved them money, just because people didn't need as much care after surgeries. I believe that's what
that's true.
As much time or care after surgeries, and at $20,000 to $40,000 a day or whatever it is.
For the United States, we don't care about your health. We just
Well,
they just want to save money.
I thought that was a unique way to go about it, and I really admired it. Actually, I was like, that's pretty clever, because it's true. For us to prove the science is going to take some time, and so that's one way to look at it. And I don't know, I wish I knew what that study was. It was just hearsay, but it made sense to me. And you were talking about some of the major hospitals. Our own Tracy Sullivan has been involved in the Yale University Hospital and setting up their Reiki program. And so it is very accepted in the world of science, and there is a lot of science to back it up. But I always send people to the Center for Reiki Research.org.
Right.
Yeah. Anything I'm missing there?
No, I think.
Sorry if I talked too much about science, guys. I still love it. One of the other questions is, how do I find a Reiki practitioner? That's a common question.
Well, I always tell people to go to Reiki.org and click find a Reiki practitioner near me.
There's a whole section, which is you type in your postal code and it will tell you if you have licensed teachers, professional members of the Reiki Membership Association, or affiliate members. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I tell people, I said, the reason I'm suggesting that is not just because I'm affiliated with the International Center for Reiki Training, but it's the reason I'm affiliated with the International Center for Reiki Training. I tell them if you can't find somebody who is trained through the ICRT, ask the questions that are pertinent. If someone has been trained through the ICRT, it means something. It means that they understand like basic techniques. It means that they have been attuned to the energy and had practice time in class. Ask them where they got their training. Ask them what their lineage is. And then, of course, when I teach, especially with Holy Fire, it's a little different. So I tell them, I said, don't you go out there and tell people like, I don't know what my lineage is, make me look bad. No, they should be able to say, how did you get your Reiki? Ask them about their training. How long have you been practicing? How many clients do you see a week? Do you teach? Because not all Reiki practitioners do teach.
No.
But if they do teach, it means they probably have been asked to. They've been doing it for a while, because most people will start teaching when people go, hey, can you teach me this? What do you say?
Oh gosh, Reiki.org is a really good place to start, because you can type in your zip code or your postal code wherever you are in the world and find people that have received really complete evidence-based courses. But you can also, that might not be the lineage that you feel the most aligned with, and you can also check out some of the other Reiki associations.
Yeah.
You can actually Google Reiki practitioners near me as well. Apparently I don't show up though, because I've got to if I can be in my own house and Google Reiki practitioners near me, and I'm not one of the ones that shows up, because I guess I need to go in and fix the way I have the Google set up.
You know what?
But also I tell people, like, you can also ask friends and family, do you know anyone? And they'll
use social media, make a post. Has anybody gotten a Reiki session? Can anyone recommend a Reiki practitioner?
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to say that ICRT is like the best or the only.
Oh no, they are.
Because they're
just kidding.
I'm thinking like abroad, like in like in the UK, I've met people through some different lineages, and then they've had good training.
There's
Just
some great
ask
training
questions.
out there and great lineages.
Yeah. And don't
Agreed.
be afraid to ask. Just ask
Yeah.
questions like, how long is the session? How much is it?
What do I expect? And
What do I expect? Do you think that I'm going to need more than one session? Do you usually recommend more than one? And just ask them questions mainly so you can keep them on the phone. Or do people still talk on the phone? I'm old.
not often, but get to know them. And well, check out their website too.
Check out their website. Yeah, what you're doing is you're looking for like that. Trust your gut. Where are you drawn? And I was going to say, if you're a praying person, pray and say, okay, just guide me, send me to the right person.
Yeah, agreed. And a lot of people will say that when they see our photo, I don't know what it is, but they'll say, when I saw your photo, I knew you were meant to be my teacher, or I knew that you could help me. And I think, wow, that's great. And they were always right. Like we always usually just really clicked. And the first person who convinced me to do a distance session back when I was brand new and I didn't know, I knew it worked, but nobody had ever trained me how to do it. And a woman saw my photo in the Reiki, on the cover of the Reiki News magazine with my horse in 2013. And she said, look, I saw your photo and my intuition just tells me that you'll be able to help me. And I've tried every doctor, I've tried every therapy, I've tried everything, and I haven't been able to get help, but something about your picture with your horse, I think you can help me. And she really caused me to get out of my comfort zone and do my very first distance session, and proved to me, or showed me, that distance sessions are every bit as powerful as in person, which is all I had done up until that point. And in fact, she's come and studied all the classes just about, and we've maintained a fantastic relationship for years. And it did help her. The Reiki energy, she didn't even know what Reiki was. She just happened to see the magazine on a magazine rack and saw our picture and said, her intuition told her, that instinct told her, I think that person can help me. What the heck is Reiki anyway?
So just, yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Just listen for your guidance and listen to your gut, or your heart. Wherever it is you feel it in your body.
Yeah. And people are going to, and it's okay to try a few Reiki practitioners, because we all have a different style and a different way of doing things. And you might resonate more with somebody else's style than you do with mine, or maybe my schedule won't accommodate what you need. That's a good sign that I'm probably not the right practitioner for you. And maybe somebody else is. And so, yeah, it's all gonna come together. But another top question is, how often should I get a treatment? And we'll start off maybe if you're receiving treatments from others, and then we'll maybe extend that into a self session.
Okay. So if you're receiving Reiki from others, it really depends on what you're working on. I have a client that I do sessions on twice a week, the maintenance sessions, because she has more money than I do and she can afford it. Sometimes people come and it's just, there's something a little off, and they get a Reiki session. They're like, they'll have it, like you were talking about crying. Sometimes they release and it unblocks them. They get in alignment and they're good. And they may not come back for another 6 months, if at all. But then sometimes you feel like it's just the beginning of their journey. And then as a Reiki practitioner, I don't know how to explain it except that it's a partnership.
Yes.
Let me say this, the client is responsible for their own healing ultimately, because they're the one that's going to decide whether to come back or not, and they have decided to come because they're ready to heal. And so it's a partnership with the client. What do you feel? Here's what I'm feeling. There's is this like the end or is this the beginning? And a lot of times it's the beginning. Or as you heal one thing and it's looky there, there's more. Look, wait, there's more.
Oh yes, I know that.
Yeah, it's
I keep waiting to be done.
Healing in layers. And so I usually just leave it open with the client, and I'll tell them, like, sometimes they're like, okay, I feel good, but I'm going to call you. And sometimes they're like, can we go ahead and schedule the next appointment? And I'm like, and I pull the book out and go, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
So how about you?
Karen, a lot like what you said, and the only things I would add is that sometimes, like for more significant issues, if you're dealing with a serious or significant issues, there is some background that says 3 sessions fairly close together can be the most effective. And so if somebody contacts me with a fairly serious condition, I'll let them know, like, it's probably not going to be one and done. We may need to do a few sessions to get to the bottom of this, especially if it's been going on for a while. That being said, I also have a few people who, book weekly for just because it uplifts them. It really helps them keep going forward in their life. I have other people that just do a monthly maintenance session. And if I'm working with something a little more serious, I've had the good fortune of helping some folks with terminal diagnoses move into what the diagnosis of no evidence of disease. And with something like that, I always let the client set the pace as far as whether they want to come every 2 weeks or something. But if it is a terminal illness, sometimes we meet weekly. And I find that that's really effective. One of the things I love to see, and that's maybe the next question, is like, I love to see my students take a class, and because then I know that they've got Reiki in their own hands and they don't have to wait until I have a session available to them. They can continue to work on themselves. And sometimes we think, well, I've got a class, I shouldn't need a session, but I have I get a session personally every month from my mentor, Colleen, and I can notice it. If for some reason one of our schedules extends that a bit, I notice it. I'm just kind of like, things just aren't flowing quite as smoothly. So I love the idea of maintenance sessions, and I find everybody's a little different. Some people need 2 a week, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some people once a month or twice a month, and other people are once a quarter. But I'm a big fan of doing some regular sessions before you move into crisis. Yes. Because there's no need of moving into crisis. Like it's using Reiki for prevention or preventative.
So was because you've taken a class, how often do you give yourself Reiki?
Yeah.
To be able to maintain just a monthly session with Colleen Benelli.
I do Reiki for myself every day, and I just have to. And I don't think I've made a secret of the fact that I'm I don't know how reformed I am as far as being a type A personality, and that I always wondered if it was even type A plus, if there was such a thing. And so I need for myself to do Reiki. I do it at bedtime every night, and I usually activate my symbols every morning and take a Reiki walk. And then I just look for little ways to weave it in through my day. In fact, I wrote an article about it that I can attach to the notes, called Weaving Reiki into Your Life. And so I'll do Reiki if I'm doing something online or on a television. I'll do Reiki while I read. I'll do Reiki in the car. I'll do Reiki when I'm with the dogs, with the horses, in nature. Like, I just try, when I'm cooking, I just try to find little ways to weave it in every day. And then I do a session once a month with Colleen, and I find that I maybe need a little more than some people do.
No. My cat is attuned to Reiki, and he gives me Reiki.
My dogs and horses too. Yeah.
Yeah. And as if people decide to go the route of becoming a student of Reiki, which is a lifelong journey, you find that it becomes a way of life. And it's almost, it's not even thinking about, I'm giving myself a session, which is how I fall asleep every night, but it becomes your way of life. You incorporate Reiki into everything, like you're saying. Yeah.
I agree. And so self sessions, and what would be the difference between Reiki sessions, receiving sessions, and a class? What would you say to that?
Oh, when people decide to move from receiving sessions from me to taking a class, to me, it's a big spiritual shift.
Yeah.
It's their first acknowledgement of, oh, I can initiate this. I don't have to depend on Karen to give me Reiki. I have this connection myself. And that is the start of every big spiritual journey, I think. So that's what I would say first off.
I love that answer. That's better than my answer.
There was too woo. Because I mentioned I used to teach poetry. Yeah. No, what's the practical answer, Pam?
Oh gosh, yeah. I feel people. I'm like you. I feel people step into their power when they are ready to start taking classes on their own and ready for their vibration to raise. They really step into their power, and they take responsibility for themselves. They don't have to depend on us, and they can still
can still get a session.
Always come to us and always have a session. But I get very excited. I guess if we were doing this for economic purposes, we would just want people to continue doing sessions with us forever. But it's never about that. It's always about Empowering people. Agreed. You want people to learn and grow. And we were talking before we started recording about the Reiki business book. Like, when you teach people at the master level, you want them to have a successful business. Their success does not negatively impact yours. It's like fledglings. You want your students and your clients to succeed. And these classes, and then stepping forward on their own journeys and their own path with Reiki, it's so beautiful too. I sometimes get a little overwhelmed that we get to witness that, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just get to witness watching people just heal maybe some significant traumas that have held them back, and then watching them take a class and step into their power. And yeah, we have the best job in the world. Bar none. Those are the most common questions that people Google, and I'd really like to open it up to you guys now and just ask I hope that you have some questions for us as well.
No, Stacy had a paper full.
Do you have some questions written down, Stacy?
Excessive, and so I was writing down almost everything you said, but I did have a few. One that I'm very interested is, what's the difference between Holy Fire 3 and Karuna?
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
Great question. Everybody gets confused about that, Stacy. So that is a fantastic question. Do you want to take that one, Karen?
Yeah. So let me clarify. You are asking, what is the difference in the energy between Holy Fire 3, say master level? Because Holy Fire 3
master level. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I'm a master in Holy Fire, but then I see the Karuna and I'm like, oh no, I'm missing something. Like
why would I want to take Karuna? Yeah. That's a really good question. I would say half of my master students feel called to take Karuna. And then when they'll ask me, why would I want to take Karuna? And I wasn't called to it right away. I think it's after I worked with the energy for a while and I became curious. And then I started looking into it. For me, Karuna is, and I think we consider it maybe our highest level.
Yes, it is. It's an
Of
advanced
Reiki?
master class.
Yeah, it is an advanced master class. And Karuna means compassionate action. And it's, to me, the next step after you have worked with the energy, you've learned some master techniques, you've been working with the energy for at least 6 months, and you're on a spiritual path. And the Karuna Reiki gives you 8 more symbols. They're very specific frequencies for specific healing. And to me, the energy is more feminine as well. So it's, to me, we also do chanting and toning. It's some advanced Reiki master techniques, but it's also different frequencies so that you can more fine tune the healing that you're doing, if that makes any sense.
Okay. Thank you.
And yeah, I would agree. Most people get confused about what it is, Stacy, but Karuna Reiki is an advanced masterclass. So one of the requirements of Karuna Reiki is that you must have been at the master level for at least 6 months before you take Karuna. And sometimes people think this is arbitrary, because we ask people, you can study level 1 and 2 together or separate as you choose and as your teacher teaches. And then we ask people to wait at least 6 months to do the masters. And then we would ask people to work at the master level at least 6 months to do Karuna. And this might sound a little arbitrary, but having taught Reiki since 2011, every once in a while, you'll have a student say, can I take it after 5 months or whatever, or 5.5? And every so often, I have made the exception if it was for a good reason. And I notice that those students, even in 5 months, aren't quite as ready for the master level than as if they've had at least 6 months. And for some of the students, it was the best idea, for sure. For whatever they were dealing with, they needed the master level. I think I did it once with a terminal client who is no longer terminal and who has no evidence of disease. Yeah. And I think I also did it with someone who really needed one of the techniques in the master level for what she was dealing with. I know I did. I just did that last week. And I'm happy that those 2 or 3 students came a little bit early, but even a little bit early, I could tell, like, oh, another month and you would have been more ready for this, like you. And the same at the Karuna master level. And it can be from any lineage. The same, you don't need to, we teach Holy Fire Reiki, Karen and I do, with the ICRT, and the ICRT also supports Usui Tibetan Reiki. And sometimes people think, well, I guess I have to start back at level 1 and 2 before I take Holy Fire Masters because my Reiki 1 and 2 wasn't with Holy Fire. No, you don't. Like from any lineage, level 1 and 2 can go to the master level, and from any lineage of a master can study Karuna Reiki. There's just that 6 month time frame in between. And it's mostly just so that you can become familiar with the energy so that you're ready for the next step.
And when we say ready, we mean your energy field becomes attuned to Reiki. And so it's jarring and you need about 6 months to okay, I think I got this now. And then you play with it and you work with it. And then that's part of you then. And then it's okay, hit me again. I'm ready for 8 more, I think. And then it's a little, but you're already, I hate to say higher because I don't mean that in a snobby way. Now I'm this. No, I don't mean that.
Yeah.
But I do mean that you're vibrating at a higher frequency.
Yeah, Karen, the Reiki class brings you to a higher frequency of vibration. Every class, and it's not linear. I tell people you can you can be a Karuna Reiki master and take a Reiki level 1 and 2 class. That's why Karen and I love reviewing classes, and it can rock your world because it's going to take you higher again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. Does anybody, and Kat, I'm sorry, I didn't see you in the waiting room.
You actually, I wasn't waiting long. No, I wasn't
Good.
waiting long.
Good.
I'm sorry I'm late.
That's okay. I didn't see you come in, and then I opened something up and saw you there, and I hoped you hadn't waited long. Yeah, Margie, do you have a question? Oh, you're muted. It's the only thing. I'm just going to ask you to.
Hey, Margie.
Hi.
Hi.
My question is about spirit releases. And I know it's taught in Holy Fire Master and also taught in Karuna Master. So I guess from what you just said, I guess the spirit release techniques is in the Karuna is more advanced than the one in Holy Fire Master.
No, actually, because Karuna is open to all the lineages. Not every master lineage teaches a spirit release technique. So we may have students coming from Shiki Rojo, and they haven't learned the spirit release. So we do it again in the Karuna so that we catch everybody.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it's really the same technique. And so you do have a slightly higher frequency to work with when you're at the Karuna level, but the technique is the same. And I find people, Karen, that take the spirit release at when they become a Holy Fire Reiki master, and even when they use it a bit, they love to learn, they love to review it at the Karuna level, because it is probably, it's a really advanced technique, and it's probably one of the things we have the most questions about.
Yeah, and so it's good to, and also you get after working with it, sometimes I teach it in master and I have the same student back in Karuna. I'm like, have you done a spirit attachment release? No. But then sometimes people have more, and then so they have more questions. So they're learning, like Pam said, they're learning it the same thing again, but they're coming from a higher perspective. Like, okay, I've done it. Now I have some questions. What about this? What about that?
Yeah, good point, Karen. Does that help, Margie? Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, because I heard that it's very common for people to have a spirit attachment.
It's very unusual to find someone who doesn't have anything.
Yeah,
in my experience.
Yeah, they'd be an angel.
Yes, I've only ever encountered one person who, in the Reiki session, I went to do spirit release and there was nothing there. And in the thousands of people that I've worked with, and I went, whoa. And she wasn't a Reiki practitioner either, and she wasn't doing this. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it.
You don't get out much, do you?
But we think of spirit release, and I know I did a podcast about that with Jennifer Taylor. We think of it as being big bad energies and demons and things like that, and it can be. But the reason we teach it at the Holy Fire level is that the Holy Fire energy has dominion over souls. They have to listen to it. So it's very effective. But it can also be things like conditions or diseases or even addictions. Those are all, it's any energy that has a level of consciousness. So if you think of it about it, multiple sclerosis has a consciousness, Alzheimer's, fibromyalgia, and even minor cold and flu, there is a level of consciousness, cancer. And that's one of the tools that I find has been the most helpful in assisting people with chronic or serious illnesses. Is one of the questions you ask is you just ask the energy, how many spirit releases is it going to take before we can release the energy of this condition or this illness from someone. And then you gauge how many sessions that you're going to need based on that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Does it? It would also, would it, that's physical illnesses, would it also include like a mental illness? Maybe
Yes.
multiple personality disorder, why somebody would, I realize somebody can have a trauma in this current lifetime, but I don't know if they, even if it did come originally from that, or maybe they would be more vulnerable, because I think if somebody is very frightened, they somehow attract more kind of fearful spirits or something like that.
Like schizophrenia.
That's correct. And I think that sometimes, of course, when you do have some attached, your energy is a little low, and so you can get more. And I've used this technique for some people with mental health conditions. But one thing I'm always very cautious of is suggesting that this doesn't take the place
Right.
of psychiatric care or and it doesn't. And please
Don't stop your
for heaven's
medication.
sake, continue keeping your taking your medication. Exactly, Karen. I've had some tremendous success with people with bipolar disorder. Personally, I've never worked with anyone with schizophrenia, so I don't know if it would be helpful. It couldn't hurt. And it would be really interesting to maybe work alongside of a mental health professional, or
We need more studies in that.
we
See?
need more studies in that. But even with the bipolar medication, I've had a lot of success with that, but we've all found it was very important for our client to continue with their medication. But it really did provide a significant amount of relief. So I'm not sure about multiple personality disorder. I just know that it can't hurt. So it would be really interesting to try it.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, because it's complementary, not in place of.
That's right. It's never
An
alternative. Yeah. Thanks. Karen, did you have something with that you would add to that, or I jumped into that one?
No, that's
You first.
I did have a client with schizophrenia.
Did you?
And we
how
did,
that-
yeah.
How
And
did it go? Did it help?
I did a lot of spirit releases on her. This is crazy. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not sure that the things she saw weren't really there. And
I've often wondered that if people with these disorders are just a little bit more sensitive and can see some of the things that many of us cannot. I've often wondered.
But the Reiki alone, and she would keep going off of her meds, and it wasn't, it helped, but it didn't cure. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And then
Well, and it
I
sounds
couldn't convince her, like, you've got to stay on your meds.
yeah.
And I don't know if it makes them, this is why we need more studies. I don't know if it makes them more open because they're in a particular place, things that I wonder about at night when I can't sleep. But I don't know. But but it did release them. There were things attached, and they did release.
One of my bipolar clients said that she heard a voice, and that as soon as we did the spirit release, and she'd heard it all of her life, and had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder at a very young age. And she said she stopped hearing the voice after this. And incidentally, it's so interesting because there was a study done on mental health, and it wasn't mental health and Reiki, it was just mental health. And it was a very broad study, university study, and they took people and they screened them and to make sure that they didn't have mental health issues, and then they sent them out to to a really wide range of mental health, like counselors and hospital psych wards and psychiatric hospitals, and just a really wide range of mental health professionals. And they said answer every question honestly, but say you hear voices. That's the only question you're not going to be honest in answering. And over 75% were diagnosed with a significant mental illness, and over 50% were diagnosed with more than one.
So all of us clairaudient people go, nope, I don't hear anything.
Yep. That's why I think it can be harder to open up your intuition or gifts if it is clairaudience and if you hear voices, because that's very much of a societal norm. If you hear voices, you might be crazy. Yeah, which is unfortunate. But Kat, you had a question.
Yeah, just going back to the comment you made earlier, asking the energy how many sessions somebody might need. Is this done through dowsing, or is it's like a question you're asking and getting a clear answer on?
Yeah, that's such a good
Speaking of clairaudience.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean?
That one, Karen,
I energy. Like you call it on the phone. What do you do?
I know. One of the things that in my journey with Reiki is that I really had shut down my intuition very hard, purposefully, because I didn't want to be, because I am a little more sensitive than some people, and I didn't want to be considered different or odd or crazy. But a big part of my journey has been reopening my intuition. And your intuition works with everybody differently. Like some people, we were saying clairaudient, those are people that hear energy. There's clairvoyant people who see pictures and in their mind, and there's people who just have a knowing, and they don't know why they know, but they know. And there's all these different ways. Some people smell energy, some people taste it, some people feel it in their body, and some people just hear thoughts. They're clear thinking. They hear thoughts, and it sounds like their own thought, but it may have a higher level of guidance. And other people use their imagination. Over time, a lot of those opened for me, and so I just began trusting my intuition more. And so I would begin the Reiki energy flowing, and I would just say, how many sessions are we going to need to help this person with this issue that they have said they need help with? And I would just pay attention to what I would receive. And sometimes I would just get a little ping. For me, my main gift was clear knowing. And a lot of people who have psychic abilities, that is a gift. It was very difficult to learn to trust that. But I learned how to dowse, and so I learned to just get a ping. You're going to need 3 sessions, or you're going to need 7 sessions, or 1 session. And I'd write it down, and then I would take out my dowsing rods and say, is that right? And I would verify with the dowsing rods, and if the dowsing or the pendulum, some people use a pendulum or muscle testing, said that my ping was right, that was how I learned to trust my intuition and sort of the little bits of knowledge that would come in. Karen, what would you say to that?
I just put a link in the chat because I just wrote about guidance and for my blog on September the 30th. And I thought, because it's called Steps to Living Your Divine Purpose, but it's the same thing. Like, how do you listen? How do you listen? So I just talked a little bit about that. It's exactly what you said, Pam. Everybody has a different way of interpreting those pings, and it's learning to trust. And so for me, it was like healing a lot of trust issues, trusting myself, trusting yourself. I don't know if you've been like as nutty as I've been for the grand majority of my life. It's like, not only do I not trust men and other people, like I don't even trust my own judgment. Look what I've done. So it was a long process of learning to trust. Like, I think that's what I heard. And I like dowsing rods or a pendulum to am I hearing this right? That's really good, but you get better at it, but you just have to, start trusting that guidance. But and if people are listening to this, it's reiki-institute.com. Just step to trusting your divine purpose or something.
I'll put a link, Karen, in there.
Okay, just put a link to that.
Yeah, I copied it, so I'll put a link in there.
It's hard, but you get better at it.
And in the meantime, try to listen first and just see what your intuition's telling you, and then go ahead and verify with dowsing or pendulum or something like that.
And some people, you just feel it in your body. You start to feel like really a gut response. Melissa?
So that was my question for us tonight too, is Pam, you often talk about the Reiki energy tells you this or this, but you have all these voices in your head.
I know, I would be locked up, wouldn't I?
But so how do you discern that it's the Reiki energy telling you something and it's not just that? This
That's
is
the trust
leading
issue
to
again.
It's trusting, but I guess from a scientific or a practical point of view, you want to say, my brain says all kinds of things to me.
Right.
So when this brain says, so Pam, like this voice said to you, you need to sing at this place you were going. So if the voice said to you, okay, Pam, you should sing on American Idol, you'd be like,
what?
That's a bit too much. So that's my question is, how do you tell the difference? What is just the craziness in your head that comes and goes? And is there just a knowing that comes with Reiki, or a sense that?
Yeah.
That's my question. Sorry, it's a weird question, but
no, it's a
fantastic
question.
Yeah.
You know what? I'd love to answer it, because a big part of my journey was learning to listen. And I would have to say that the first 40 plus years of my life was following my own agenda and following those voices in my head. And then I think I was 42 when I learned Reiki. And one of the big things was learning what is the Reiki's guidance and what is just my own ambition or my own ego telling me. And in fact, it was so important to me that this is what led to the animal communication. And I have to admit that learning animal communication opened up that pathway for me to spiritual guidance as well. In fact, it's one of the side effects of learning to communicate with animals is that it does open up your ability to hear spiritual guidance a little bit better. So let me tell you from the animal communication class, in over time, I've really had a lot of time to develop this and help people learn it. A couple of things. If it's your own voice in your head, it tries to convince you. You should do this because blah, 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 blah. It sounds a little bit like a used car salesman. And it's got all these reasons, and also it'll go over and you'll hear it on repeat and that sort of thing. That's your own unhealed ego and personality trying to take charge. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not your highest source of guidance. And so if you'd like to listen from a little bit higher source of guidance, you can tune in to the Reiki energy or source or a guide. If you don't have to work with a guide, but some people like working with an angel or an archangel or Mother Mary or Jesus or Buddha or Ganesha. And so how do you tell the difference? And the difference is divine guidance doesn't try to convince you at all. It's usually very simple, succinct language, and the instant that you become aware of it, you can feel the truth of it in your whole body, I think is the best way I can describe it. But there is something with Reiki that you can do, and that is you can use Reiki on your third eye, your brow chakra, and even on your throat chakra, especially a hand position where you activate your Reiki and place it on both your third eye and your throat chakra, or you can include your heart in that, wherever you're guided. And you can say, Reiki, please help me to develop the discernment to be able to tell the difference. And once you get aligned with that, like once you get, I just wrote an article and it actually needs a bit of editing before it can go out, but I called it learning to listen and then listening to learn. So I first had to learn to listen, and then once I learned to listen, I was able to begin listening to learn. And that was both with the animals and with Reiki. And in the meantime, until I trusted myself, I doused it. Like, hey, did I just make that up? Or did that come from Reiki or from you, God? Like, where did that come from? And I doused it. And it took me quite a while of dowsing to really develop that discernment. And I didn't know I could ask Reiki to help me with the discernment. I learned that later. I wished I'd known that up front, because I think it would have made the learning process a lot smoother and a lot easier. Does that help, Melissa? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that at least gives me some tools to to discern what's the answers are.
I just, and ask for, because I still don't trust. Okay, we were talking before that I'm moving to Ecuador. That's a big move. And I was like, what? So I asked for signs. I asked for a specific sign.
Yeah, good one, Karen.
I asked for a specific sign. I said, if this is what I'm supposed to do, I asked to see, I have connection with like a praying mantis is like a spirit totem for me. And I hadn't seen one since last year. So I said, if I'm supposed to move to Ecuador, then you need to show me. You need to show me, send me a sign. I want to see a praying mantis because I haven't seen one since last June. And I saw one. We went to the Reiki retreat. I saw one in Prescott above my bathtub. Twice there was a praying mantis in the lobby of the Mago retreat and then I came home at 1:30 in the morning, and I am not kidding you. There was a mantis. I put it on Facebook because I couldn't believe it. There's a mantis on my ceiling in my house at 1:30 in the morning. And then 2 nights later, I went to bed and there's a mantis right over my bed. I'm like, and as soon as I posted, I'm moving to Ecuador apparently next year. They stopped coming. So I'm like, okay, that was my sign. Because it's something that's, I'm going to pick up and move to another, really? Okay. Then you have to show me something on that one. So ask for a sign.
But that's my question. So really, it just says you should move to Ecuador?
That's so,
like Bing?
No, I had been thinking about it and there was things popping up and I was like, you should go.
Okay.
And the other thing was, I mentioned that I was thinking about it to Jay, our mutual friend, Jay Jackson. He said, you are? So we're going next month, November 15th. I'm flying to Ecuador to check out the place that I'm thinking about moving. I'm not sure exactly where, but I think it's this place. And I'll ask for signs. That sounds, yeah, that does sound crazy. And I don't want my family to go, what? But I explained and I said, I'm just feeling now, I feel guided and I got signs. I asked for verification. I got the verification. It needs to be something weird enough that you go, okay, I'm not making this up. Yeah. Or I've got friends like Pam. Do you see this? You see this? Yeah. And just to make sure I'm still here. And yeah, it helps. So just do that.
I just want to hop on real quick and just say, I've noticed that with William, especially with William, that the types of questions that he asks the energy are so vital and so important to the discernment process.
Yes.
And you can actually Reiki journey, and in your Reiki journey, drop into the energy and ask these important questions. And the better and more detailed the question is, the more discernment you'll receive through the Reiki journey. Colleen, the same, William and Colleen. I listen and learn from them tremendously because of the process that they take with the energy.
I agree with you, Lauren. And I want to add to that if I could, but I just want to go back to Karen and the learning to trust and asking for a sign. I used to always use Reiki and kind of hear some guidance, and I'd say, okay, if something just happened or if this is true, can I have a sign? And one day I heard very clearly, I don't often hear voices, but that day I did. And I heard, daughter, I have given you 384 signs. It is time for you to have some faith. So I don't mean to say that I really understood it right from the beginning. It's like, yeah. And then I wanted to add to what Lauren said because I love this. I was just in New York with William, assisting him with a class at the Omega Institute the week before last. And he said that he asks those vital questions, Lauren, that you were talking about. Like he'll ask a question of the energy, and I do that all the time too. And then he lets go of any attachment to the outcome. And that's really important. And he says he doesn't, and this is also really important, and I never thought to mention this, he doesn't get the answer right away. He says the answer usually comes later on when he's doing something else and not thinking about it. Suddenly the solution or the answer will pop in. And I know that one of the things, and you were talking about William Rand and Colleen Benelli, two of our dear friends. And one of the things that I know William does, and I can tell you this, they're public about it, or he's public about it, so Colleen Benelli is William's spiritual advisor. So he'll then take the answers that he received, and he'll go verify them with her, and then they'll dive a little deeper, and they'll do journeys together and see what both of them see and compare their notes. And so it can be a really interesting process. But the answers will often come later when you're doing something else.
I can verify. I've been talking to Pam sometimes, and she'll say, "This just dropped in."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I must say that listening has probably been one of the biggest parts of my journey in order to be really effective working with animals. And I've worked with animals all my life, but more prominently since 2009, I've become a horse trainer, and you have to listen with your mind, your body, your soul, your spirit, all of your chakras, all of your perceptions, everything, every part of and you're listening you're listening and observing, and you're watching for just subtle shifts, subtle things that tell you when a horse has had too much or had enough, and if you take them any further they're going to explode, or what. You really have to get good at that. And I've noticed that the animal Reiki course is very much about developing your ability to perceive with all of the parts of yourself. There's quite a few exercises that really open your abilities there, and then I do some exercises certainly in the animal communication as well. And then Lauren, you mentioned journeying. Colleen Benelli teaches journeying, and I learned that in my shamanic studies years ago. That's another fantastic way to just open your perceptions to receive. Great questions, you guys. Anything anything else, you guys? No?
I have one, but it requires probably a long explanation. So I don't know if you want me to save it till November. It's just,
Now you've piqued our curiosity. What is it?
Yeah, we need to know. And maybe we'll do a whole podcast.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's just 7:00.
what are the advantages of taking the ICRT teaching course compared to just, personally, I can give Reiki to someone, but in my heart, I don't feel like Karen or Pam. You guys are like gods to me. You like, you have all the training. How much training am I missing by taking a 3-day class when you guys do 1,000 hours of training? There's a lot that I don't know.
You can still do it. It's experience. Okay, Pam, you may want to say something. It's
You go ahead.
experience.
You go ahead, Karen. And I do have something on that for sure, but
I was doing a Clubhouse presentation once and somebody said, "Oh, I'm only level 1 Reiki." And I said, "You know, Mrs. Takata practiced in Hayashi's clinic with only level 1 Reiki for a year." And it's about, we're all on an individual path. I'm not even sure if I'm addressing your question, but you take the training that you get and you continue to expand it.
and you know, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I thought, Stacy, it's really interesting because I have people say that, and I wrote an article about the ICRT training, but it's not for everyone. You might get a nudge like I did and like Karen did. Hey, go do an extra 1,000 hours of training because you want to be the best you can be at this for your students. But I want to tell you that I taught for 5 years before I got that nudge. And when I did get the nudge, hey, go do an extra 1,000 hours of training, I said, are you kidding me? Is that really necessary?
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. And yet I have to say, as much as I resisted it, it's some of the best advice Reiki ever gave me. I got to meet Karen and William and Colleen and Kathy and just our beautiful Reiki family that we're part of. But I want to share this with you because it's really neat. When I became a licensed teacher with all that extra training, a student who had studied with me like 7 years before came back and did a class. And it was 2016 when I got the nudge. So yeah, I taught for 5 years. I didn't get accepted till 2018. So I taught for 7 years before doing the extra training. And one of my students that had learned with me early on came to a class after I had done the extra training. And this is what she said to me. Thank goodness, because she had done level 1. And then when I was teaching the class 7 years later, she came back for level 1 and 2. So she reviewed level 1 and she did her level 2. And what she said to me, I never thought of this, but it was profound. I'm so glad I found you before when you were just new at this, because I wouldn't have been ready for the way that you're teaching now. Like I'm ready now, but I wouldn't have been ready for this 7 years ago. So she was very thankful that I went ahead and taught before I had all the extra training. And then later on, when she was ready, she was happy I had the extra training. But I guess that's just to say, like, the student finds the teacher that's right for them, and you don't have to be a licensed teacher. William Rand will say that too. It's not the path for everybody, but it's
for me. I've been considering it since Sedona. However, I think in my heart, I'm just drawn to it because of the amazing energy that comes from it. Like, I don't feel like I can't practice with not doing it. Right. I just feel like I feel a calling, like I need to get in there. I need to.
Oh, okay, good. Come. Good. That's great. Come.
It just sounds very daunting to do it 1,000 hours, but it's also on your own timeline, right?
You've got time. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
I don't eat elephants, Karen.
It's just yeah, one step at a time.
No,
Thank
it
you.
is. It's one of those things that if you're called to it, you have a mentor, first of all, that helps you through. And probably one of the biggest things I found, Karen, is my confidence level. My relationship with Reiki changed. It was always strong, but it got even stronger and more profound. And then I became a lot more confident. And I love the camaraderie of our wonderful group. And I
Yeah.
love having a mentor. What about you?
Yeah. Everything she said. Yeah. No, I think what was driving me to be honest, at the beginning was my academic background, being a college professor. And I thought, oh, I must become a licensed teacher if I'm going to have any credibility in this field. But I think that's why I responded to you, Stacey, like, you don't have to have the degree that, but it has really been just amazing. And then it started, that was my initial thrust, was like, oh, if I'm going to do this full time, I need to go and really do it properly. But then I got in, I was like, oh no, there's just more and more. And it's following those signs, like we were talking, Melissa. Is it this?
I'm going to ask to see a praying mantis now.
Or you just say, if this is what's supposed to happen, I'm gonna magically get the $500 to apply because I sure don't have it. And then poof, it falls in your hand and go, okay, well then here, I'm gonna turn in the application. If I'm supposed to do this, I'm gonna pass the psychological exam.
Right.
You just go step by step. And next thing you know, look at me. Seriously though, but you start from where you are and what you are, but don't feel like you're less than. I think that's my fear. But I want you to feel like you're less than, because
don't feel like you have to.
I don't feel less than. I feel like there's more.
There's more. Okay, good. Because there is more.
There is more.
Yeah.
And
I feel like I need to. Like it's like I just have to.
If you've got a calling, then you sign up, sister.
There you go.
Because we'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'll think about it. I will. You know what? I will do it. And I'll send you a picture of my praying mantis because I'll get one tonight.
Okay. I want to see.
And you know what? I'll tack in that article onto this podcast as well, the article that I wrote about becoming a licensed teacher. It's got links to where you go if that's of interest
okay, perfect.
to you. And it just kind of walks you through a little bit of my process, but it also talks to some of the other licensed teachers. And for me, a big thing was when I met them at my first Reiki retreat, I could feel
Me too.
their higher vibration. And before that, I thought, I don't see the sense of this program. I don't know why. And that's why when the energy said you're to do this program, I argued a little bit. But then when I met them, I was so impressed with every single licensed teacher I met. I could feel the vibration of them.
It felt like home.
It felt like home.
Exactly.
It felt like home to me. Like, I know y'all. This is where I belong.
Yeah.
That's how Karen felt that way to me. I just love her. She's so outgoing and funny, and I felt like I knew all of you from a past lifetime. So
we probably did, Stacey.
Probably.
And I hate to even say that, but even more than my feelings towards William, I didn't feel that comfort or like I belonged with him. But you guys just your power just shines, right? Both of you. It's just like you're glowing. It's crazy.
It's the lighting.
No, I agree. I was so impressed with my colleagues that I went, I think I want to be part of that club.
Me too.
Never mind, Reiki. I'm sorry I argued. Those are my people. And I'd like to be as professional and as knowledgeable of that as them. And I remember my first class with Colleen Benelli, Cami Cote and I were were reviewing it together. And after the level 1 and 2 class, because my classes, I used to read quite a bit from the manual, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I remember Cammie and I looking at each other driving home going, she didn't open her manual once. And she did the whole class. I hope they don't expect us to do that. And then I remember it was about a year later, just a year and a month later, I was coming back from having taught in Australia, and I realized, wait a minute, I didn't open my manual once. I just taught because of the way that I guess we learn so much, don't we, Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kat, did you have a question, or were you just feeling the air?
Earlier, that was my son just called me. I had to
Okay. I saw
I'll
your
be
hand.
home soon, Mom. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
Good.
it's dark and I've got my door open. I think frogs are coming in my house.
Oh dear. The cats will have fun with that.
Do you still have? Are you going to do a Reiki share?
Something. We're at time, so I'm going to leave it to people. I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us, and namaste. And if any of you that are here for the share want to stay on, I'm going to welcome you to. But thank you for all those listening for checking out our podcast. We hope we answered some of your questions too.
You did. Thank you.
Thanks.